My wife vanished overnight, with my best friend. The next morning, the sheriff called about my ransacked house. They didn't just leave, they looted my life. But they forgot one thing: I don't break, I rebuild. And when I did, I uncovered a betrayal so deep, it nearly ruined them. We weren't fancy people, just a small-town couple with a decent house, a few good friends, and a grill that worked half the time. Life wasn't perfect, but it was predictable. I liked that. Predictable meant safe. But the funny thing about safety, it only feels real until you realize you never had it. It was a Saturday. I remember because the sun was out, the beer was cold, and I'd just finished mowing the lawn. A few friends came by for burgers and beers. My wife Tessa looked like summer in a sundress, barefoot, laughing, hair up like she didn't have a care in the world. And beside her, helping set the table, was my best friend Mark. They joked about how badly I burned the last batch of ribs. She touched his arm when she laughed. He poured her wine before he poured mine. Nothing you'd call proof. Nothing you could even complain about without sounding paranoid. But it was there. Something was there. I caught them sharing a look. You know the kind. Not long, not obvious, but enough. Enough to notice. Enough to remember later when everything else fell apart. I told myself not to make it a thing. This was Mark. He helped me rebuild the deck last fall. We'd been through breakups, layoffs, and everything in between. And Tessa? She was the one who stayed when I had nothing but a used truck and a borrowed mattress. I'd convinced myself they were just comfortable around each other because I made them comfortable, because I trusted them both. The music played, someone cracked a joke about our neighbor's ugly birdbath, and I pretended everything was fine. But I saw it again, him brushing her hand as they passed each other plates. Her smiling in that soft, private way she used to save for me. It's strange how fast your gut can turn against your brain. My instincts whispered, but I shoved them down, told myself not to be that guy, not to start a fight over a half-second glance. So I put more charcoal on the fire, told more jokes, and I watched. That barbecue came and went. People left, plates stacked in the sink. Tessa kissed me on the cheek that night and said, "Thanks for today." I said, "Of course." But something in her tone didn't land right. I didn't know then that this was the last real day we'd have, that everything after was a countdown to collapse. But I felt the crack start. I just didn't listen. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, but I think that's wrong. Hindsight is cruel, because when it all crashes down, you don't just remember what happened. You remember what you ignored, and realize that maybe, just maybe, you saw it coming the whole damn time. Monday started like any other. Coffee in the kitchen. Tessa wasn't up yet, which wasn't unusual. She liked to sleep in when she could. I figured I'd let her rest while I headed out early for work. Left a note by the sink like always. Back by 6. Need anything? But when I came home, the air felt wrong. The living room was too quiet. The scent of her perfume, usually faint in the hallway, was gone. I called out her name once, then again. Louder. Nothing. I checked the bedroom, and that's when my heart started to race. Closet door wide open. Her side, empty. At first I thought maybe she was doing laundry, but the hamper was untouched. No suitcase, no weekend bag, no toiletries on the counter, just the smell of absence. Thick, unmistakable. And then I saw the note, folded once, sitting on my pillow like it belonged there. Just 4 words, barely legible, like she wrote it in a rush. I need some time. That's it. No date, no explanation, no love you. I stood there holding that scrap of paper like it was a bomb that had already gone off. I called her. Straight to voicemail. Called again. Same thing. I sat on the bed, staring at the walls like they might offer an answer. Then I called Mark. Figured maybe he'd heard from her. Maybe she needed a friend to talk to, and Mark had always been around. Too much maybe, but still, I trusted him. Or I thought I did. It rang once, twice, then voicemail. I waited, gave it 5 minutes, called again, still nothing. And that's when something shifted in me. It wasn't panic, not yet, but something darker, like a slow leak of trust I didn't even know was fragile. I checked the driveway. Her car was gone. I checked the drawer where we kept the passports. Hers? Missing. I walked through the house in a daze. Every room echoed with something that used to be there. Her favorite mug in the sink. A half-burned candle on the windowsill. But no clothes, no charger, no shoes by the door, just holes where she used to exist. I tried to tell myself it was temporary, that maybe something happened. Maybe she'd call. Maybe Mark would text. But even as I sat on the couch staring at the front door, I knew they weren't coming back. And I couldn't shake the image from the barbecue. That glance, that soft laugh, the way she looked at him like I wasn't even there. It replayed in my mind like a warning I had ignored. I didn't know where she'd gone. I didn't know why. But I knew one thing with sickening clarity. I wasn't just left behind. I'd been replaced. I barely slept that night. The house was too quiet. Every creak sounded louder. Every shadow looked like it might move. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text, even a lie. Just something from her. Or Mark. But nothing came. The next morning, I showed up to work looking like hell. My boss pulled me aside and asked if I was all right. I lied, told him it was just a rough night. He nodded, said something about taking time if I needed it. I didn't answer. I didn't want time. I wanted answers. Then my phone rang. Blocked number. Normally, I let those go to voicemail. But something in me said to pick it up. Maybe instinct. Maybe fate. I pressed the green button and said hello. "Mr. Callahan?" the voice asked. It was calm. Professional. "This is Sheriff Daniels. We've had a report of suspicious activity at your residence. Are you home right now?" My pulse kicked into overdrive. "No, I'm at work. What kind of suspicious activity?" "We received a call from a neighbor. Said they saw a moving truck outside your house last night. People going in and out. Thought you should know." I stood up so fast I nearly knocked over my chair. "That wasn't me. I haven't been home since this morning." The sheriff paused. "Might be a good idea for you to head back. We'll meet you there." I didn't ask questions, didn't wait for permission. I grabbed my keys and ran. The drive home was a blur of red lights and curses. My hands clenched the wheel like it owed me the truth. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sheriff was already there. So was his deputy. They stood near the front porch, arms crossed, waiting. I jumped out of the truck and walked up fast. "What's going on?" I asked. Daniels looked me over. "You tell us. Your neighbor said 2 people were hauling stuff out of your house late last night, around 10. A man and a woman. Description's vague, but sounds like your wife and another man. Said they had keys." My chest tightened. "I wasn't home. I didn't authorize anyone to take anything." Daniels nodded slowly. "Mind if we go inside?" I unlocked the door and stepped through, and felt my stomach drop through the floor. The house was gutted, not vandalized, not ransacked, just empty. The TV was gone, the couch, the framed pictures, the dining chairs. Even the silverware drawer was half empty, like someone had methodically, quietly packed up a life and walked away with it. My life. I turned in place, numb. Daniels glanced around, then back at me. Looks like whoever came through had a plan. I didn't answer, because somewhere beneath the disbelief and rage, I knew exactly who it was. They didn't just leave me, they stripped me clean. I always thought when someone left you, they left things behind. A toothbrush, a sweater, maybe an old birthday card tucked in a drawer. But this wasn't someone walking away. This was someone erasing me. Room by room, I walked in silence. The kitchen was the first punch to the gut. The cabinets were open, half the dishes gone. Not the mismatched ones, not the chipped mugs, the good stuff, the set we got for our wedding, the cast iron skillet I seasoned for 3 years. Gone. Like they knew exactly what mattered most. The living room was hollow. The TV, gone. The sound system Mark helped me install, gone. The throw blanket my mother gave us, the one Tessa said she hated but always curled up with, gone. Even the rug. Who takes a rug? Upstairs was worse. Our bedroom, what was left of it, felt like a crime scene. The bed frame was still there, like a skeleton. But the mattress? Gone. Her nightstand had vanished, along with the drawer of memories she always said she couldn't live without. But she could, apparently. The closet looked like a department store after a clearance sale. A few wire hangers swayed like ghosts. My side untouched. Her side, empty. Shoes, coats, even the jewelry box I gave her one Christmas when I couldn't afford anything better. It was all missing. In the office, the lockbox was pried open. The birth certificates, the social security cards, even our passports. The file folders were dumped out, sorted, picked clean. They hadn't just taken valuables, they'd taken identity. And then I walked past the laundry room. I almost missed it. The dog's bed was gone. That one did it. That stupid, worn-out cushion with the paw prints, gone. Like they took the only soul in that house who never lied to me. I checked the back door. The leash was missing too, even the damn dog. It hit me all at once. This wasn't about leaving. This wasn't heartbreak. This was strategy, a move made piece by piece right under my nose. They didn't want to start over. They wanted to make sure I had nothing to start over with. I stood there, breath shallow, eyes fixed on the floor where our photo wall used to be. The holes in the drywall looked like wounds. And for the first time in years, I felt rage rise up in me like a storm that had been holding its breath. She didn't just walk out. He didn't just betray me. They cleaned me out, with surgical precision. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to chase. I was going to remember everything, every detail, every piece they took. Because they didn't just steal from me. They declared war. The sheriff filed a report and told me to make a list of what was missing. Like that was even possible. How do you list a home that's been hollowed out? I told him I'd try, but my head was spinning, and my pride was bleeding out all over the floor. That night, I sat alone in the garage with a notepad and a beer. Couldn't bring myself to go back into the bedroom. I kept thinking about the dog, about that note, about Mark. His silence was louder than any answer he could have given me. The next morning, I was standing on the front porch with a mug of stale coffee when I heard the screen door next door creak open. Old man Rick shuffled out with his morning paper, same as he had for the last 20 years. We'd never been close, but he'd always nod when we passed each other. The kind of neighbor who didn't say much unless it mattered. This time he walked toward the fence. "Hey, son," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "Everything all right over there?" I looked at him. "Not really, Rick." He gave a slow, sympathetic nod. "Figured something was going on. Saw your wife loading a truck with that fella a couple nights ago. Didn't think much of it at the time." I blinked. "You what?" He squinted like he was trying to remember. "Yeah, maybe Sunday night? Or Monday, can't remember. They had a U-Haul. She was packing boxes. He was carrying furniture. Big guy, short hair. Drove a black pickup, I think. They were laughing. Thought you two were moving or something." My grip on the coffee cup tightened. "Did anyone else see them?" He shrugged. "Probably. They weren't quiet. Seemed in good spirits. Like a honeymoon almost." That word, honeymoon, it sucker punched me. I managed to nod. "Thanks, Rick." He hesitated. "Didn't mean to stir anything up. Just thought you knew." "I didn't," I said. "But I do now." He went quiet and stepped back toward his porch. I stood there for a long time, the heat of the coffee slowly fading in my hand. It was confirmation I hadn't wanted, but needed. Mark. Of course it was him. The same black pickup that had been in my driveway 100 times. The same laugh I'd heard around my fire pit. And now, heard again in Rick's memory, laughing with her. They weren't sorry. They weren't hiding. They were celebrating. They didn't just take my things. They paraded it in front of my neighbors. They made a joke out of me and didn't care who saw it. But Rick made one mistake. He assumed I already knew. And that slip? That changed everything. Because now I wasn't just hurt, I was certain. I walked into the lawyer's office still holding on to the last thread of hope that maybe this was a mistake, a breakdown, a runaway moment she'd come back from. Maybe she just snapped. People do that, right? But the second I sat down across from Carla Brenner, recommended by a coworker who'd gone through a brutal split, I knew that illusion was over. She greeted me with a firm handshake and a polite smile, then slid a manila folder across the desk like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "She filed this 2 days ago," she said. I stared at it. "What?" "She submitted for divorce Monday morning, before she left. It's clean, well organized, spelled out in exact legal language. Division of property, joint accounts, Even the pet custody line item. It reads like it's been drafted for months. I didn't say anything. Just opened the folder and saw her name printed at the top. Her signature. Her initials next to each clause. Notarized. Wait, I said, flipping through the pages. This says she's claiming abandonment, that I left her. Carla gave me a look I'll never forget. Half pity, half exhaustion. She leaned back in her chair and let out a slow sigh. This wasn't impulsive, she said. This was a strategy. She timed the move, controlled the narrative, and filed in a way that puts you on defense. That's why she cleared the house. That's why she took the dog. She's trying to paint a picture. And the more you react emotionally, the more that picture sticks. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like the walls were closing in. She emptied the joint account, I said quietly. I checked. She drained it. Of course she did. She's putting distance between who she was and who she's about to become. I looked up at her. And Mark? Carla nodded slowly. If he's involved, it's no accident. He's not just helping. He's part of it, probably backing it, emotionally, financially, maybe both. People don't go to this much trouble unless they have backup. There it was. Everything I didn't want to admit laid out in tidy legal language. I hadn't been left. I'd been outmaneuvered, like a pawn too dumb to realize it had already been taken off the board. I closed the folder and sat there for a moment, feeling the weight of it all settle in my chest. She smiled at me that morning, I said. The day she filed, like nothing was wrong. Carla didn't respond. She didn't have to. Her silence said it all. Some betrayals don't come with yelling. Some don't come with fights. Some come with a kiss goodbye and a plan so smooth you don't feel the knife until it's already inside you. And I was bleeding. Quietly. Precisely. Just the way she wanted. I went home that night with fire behind my eyes and a folder full of polite betrayal tucked under my arm. I didn't even turn the lights on. Just sat at the kitchen counter, laptop open, bank app loading. If they were going to treat this like a game, I was done playing the fool. I started with the joint account. She'd drained it in 2 withdrawals, not slow, not subtle. One hit for $5,000, another for just under 4. Same day she filed. The timestamps were less than an hour apart. Efficient. Almost like someone told her how to keep it under the $10,000 reporting threshold. Mark always knew that kind of trick. Then came the credit cards. Our shared one. And her personal card that I still had login access to. She'd never changed the password. Probably thought I'd never look. Big mistake. There were hotel charges. Gas stations across 3 state lines. Restaurant bills for 2, sometimes 3. Not fast food either. Places with names I couldn't pronounce. And always her signature on the tab. And then I saw it. A receipt from a small-town motel just off I-40. Paid in cash. But the charge still came through the card as a security deposit. They'd forgotten to remove it. Maybe they thought it would drop off. Maybe they were moving too fast. They left a breadcrumb. I Googled the address. It was a place we used to pass on the way to her mother's. A dump. A no-questions-asked kind of spot. And they were there, just days ago, living like fugitives with stolen comfort. Like they hadn't just blown up someone's life. I clicked deeper. Her email was still logged into our shared browser. She hadn't signed out. There were e-receipts, spa bookings, a rental cabin on a lake. But not in her name. In his. Mark's. And he'd used the same backup email I once helped him set up during a bachelor party planning weekend. That was the moment everything crystallized. They were running. Not just from me, but from the life we'd all built together. And they were sloppy, careless in their excitement. They thought I'd be too broken to look, too hurt to hunt. But what they didn't count on was this. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was building a record, click by click, page by page. The digital fingerprints weren't just evidence, they were confession. Every transaction told a story, and every story pointed to the same truth. This wasn't love, this wasn't spontaneous. This was calculated betrayal, with receipts, and I was collecting all of them. It didn't hit me all at once. The realization came in waves, like a cold tide creeping higher with every step I took through the ruins of what used to be my life. At first I was focused on her, what she took, what she left behind. But the deeper I looked, the more I saw him, everywhere. Mark. He wasn't just my best friend. He was in my wedding, stood right beside me as I said my vows. He toasted us that night with a glass of bourbon and a smile that, looking back, was too easy, too comfortable. And now, as I sat in my garage, staring at the half-installed shelf he never finished, I realized just how deep his hands had been in my life. He helped set up the home security system, offered it as a gift after we had a break-in scare the year before, brought over the gear himself, walked me through the install, said I didn't need to hire anyone. "Let's do it ourselves," he told me. We spent hours setting up the cameras. He handled the router. He picked the app. He even named the admin account. And when I told him the password I'd chosen, he laughed and said, "Man, you've got to make it harder than that." I never changed it. I thought I didn't need to. I thought I could trust him. And now it all made sense. The system logs, when I finally pulled them up, showed the security cameras had been manually disabled the night they cleared out the house. Not by some hacker, not by brute force. Someone had logged in and shut them down, quietly, cleanly, like they knew exactly where the cameras were and how to blind them. And who else knew? Mark. He installed the front door camera. He told me where to place the motion sensors. He even suggested leaving one blind spot behind the side fence so the dog wouldn't trigger it every time she went out. That's the exact route they used to carry out the boxes, according to my neighbor. They used the same knowledge he once offered as protection and turned it into a map for a robbery. It wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal built on trust I handed him willingly. He didn't just take what wasn't his. He used everything I gave him to do it. And that's when the truth hit harder than anything before. It wasn't just my wife who left. It wasn't just my best friend who betrayed me. They planned this together, and they used my own blind spots to do it. I didn't plan on going. I told myself it wasn't worth it, that I'd already seen enough. Bank statements, browser history, security footage, digital footprints so sloppy it bordered on arrogant. But there was something about that motel receipt, something about seeing it all in person that I couldn't shake. So I drove, 3 hours through nothing but highway and static, the kind of long, angry silence that gives you too much time to think. My knuckles stayed white around the steering wheel. I wasn't sure what I was going to say when I got there. I just knew I wasn't leaving without looking them in the eye. The motel sat off the highway like a bruise no one bothered covering up. A faded sign flickered over a cracked parking lot. Vacancy, always. The kind of place people go when they don't want to be found. But I found them. Her car was parked near the office, his truck a few spots down. I recognized the dent in the back bumper. I'd helped him buff it out 2 summers ago after he backed into a mailbox. I stood there staring at it before walking toward room 12. Lights on, curtains half closed. I knocked once. Calm, no answer. Then again, louder. I heard footsteps, whispering. The lock turned. She opened the door halfway and froze. "Tessa," I said. She stepped back like she saw a ghost. "What the hell are you doing here?" Had to see it for myself. Mark's voice came from inside. "Is that?" He stepped into view, shirt half buttoned, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be here, man." "Funny," I said. "I was just thinking the same thing about you." Tessa looked between us, nervous. "You need to leave, right now." I didn't step inside, didn't yell, didn't raise a hand, just stood there with all the weight of everything they took from me packed into my voice. "You cleared out our home, emptied our accounts, took the dog, and now you're hiding in this dump like I'm the threat?" Mark stepped forward. "Back off. You're making a scene." I smiled. It wasn't kind. "Scene's already made, Mark. You just don't get to direct it anymore." Tessa grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the police." "For what?" I asked. "Coming to the room you paid for with my money?" "I said leave!" she shouted. I turned and walked back to my truck without another word. But not before I saw her hand shaking as she dialed. Not before I saw Mark step back, like the weight of it was finally landing on him. I didn't need to stay for the cops. I didn't need to fight them. Because I wasn't there for revenge. I was there for confirmation, and I got it. They were afraid, not of me, but of what came next. I didn't hear from them again, not directly, but the papers came fast. 3 days after the motel, I opened my mailbox and found the envelope. Legal-sized, cold, heavy. At first, I thought it was another court notice for the divorce, but it wasn't that. It was a restraining order, filed by Tessa, co-signed by Mark. The words on the first page hit like a gut punch. Petitioner fears for her safety due to erratic and threatening behavior exhibited by the respondent. Respondent. That was me. They said I'd shown up unannounced, that I yelled, that I intimidated and made verbal threats in a highly aggressive manner. They said I pounded on the door, that I refused to leave. They made it sound like I was unhinged, like I was dangerous, and worst of all, there were no cameras, no witnesses, just their word against mine. And after everything they stole, they still had the nerve to weaponize the system designed to protect people like me. I called my lawyer in disbelief. Carla listened in silence, then sighed. They're building a narrative, she said. You're the angry husband, the scorned man who can't let go. It's strategic. They're preemptively casting you as the problem. But I didn't do anything, I said. That doesn't matter, she replied. It's not about what's true, it's about what's provable. And unless you have evidence, they're going to spin this like you're the unstable one. It was surreal, like watching someone paint over your face with lies and then accuse you of being the mask. I tried to remember what I said at the motel, tried to find something they could twist into a threat. But I didn't raise my voice, didn't touch a thing. I turned around and left. And still, it didn't matter. Because in the eyes of the system, emotion looks like instability. Pain looks like danger. And when the ones who actually did the damage point the finger first, they get the benefit of the doubt. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy left behind. I was the guy they had to protect themselves from. They froze my ability to contact her, legally barred me from my own dog, from speaking to anyone connected to either of them. And that motel visit? Now it wasn't closure. It was evidence. I stared at the order and felt something break. Not anger, not fear, clarity. They weren't just thieves. They were actors, playing the roles they needed to win. And they were using the rules I thought would protect me to bury me. But I've always been good at reading between the lines. And if they wanted to play this smart, they forgot who taught them how. I stopped talking, stopped explaining, stopped defending myself. Every conversation felt like a trap, every word, a weapon they could twist. So I shut my mouth and started listening. Not to them. To the silence. Because inside that silence was a plan forming. And this time, it wasn't going to be emotional. It was going to be surgical. The first thing I did was fire my lawyer. Carla had been fined for paperwork and sympathy. But I didn't need sympathy anymore. I needed someone who knew how to fight. So I called a name I'd heard whispered by guys who'd gone through hell and walked out clean. Drew Halston, divorce litigator with the bite of a wolf and the memory of a shark. He didn't ask how I felt. He asked what I had. Receipts, emails, dates, the restraining order. He nodded. They moved first, that's fine. You're going to move last. Then came the accountant. Forensic, quiet, no flashy firm. Just an older woman named Evelyn who carried a leather briefcase and smelled like ink and cigarettes. She had no patience for small talk. I'm not here to make you feel better, she said, sifting through statements with surgical fingers. I'm here to find where your money went. And she did. Shell transfers, payments from joint accounts to personal ones. A string of purchases tied to a separate debit card Tessa had never disclosed. And then the crown jewel, evidence of a wire transfer into a brokerage account under Mark's name, but listed under a business I never knew existed. They weren't just stealing. They were laundering it through a side project he once pitched to me as just an idea. Then I found Liam, private investigator, ex-military, no social media, cash only, no flashy car, no questions unless they mattered. I handed him every detail I had. He nodded once, then said, I'll be in touch. He didn't promise me revenge, didn't promise fireworks. But what he gave me instead was better, information. Photos, timelines, witnesses, patterns. Mark and Tessa weren't laying low. They were flaunting it. Trips, restaurants, rental properties, even a boat registered under Mark's cousin's name, paid for in full by Tessa's trust, a trust I never knew she had access to. I spent years thinking loyalty was my strength. That being steady and dependable made me a good man. But I was wrong. Loyalty without awareness isn't strength. It's leverage for someone else to use. So I got quiet. Because silence is the best disguise for preparation. And while they were laughing over cocktails, thinking they'd broken me, I was setting the foundation for something far more dangerous than rage. The truth. Collected, documented, weaponized. Liam called me at 7:43 in the morning. No small talk, just a sentence that changed everything. I found something you'll want to see. He slid a folder across the diner table like it was radioactive. I opened it slowly, expecting more pictures, maybe receipts. But what I found was worse. A bank account. Opened 6 months ago. Out of state, under a name I didn't recognize. Alias, Brett Harmon. But the address? That stopped me cold. It was the address of a property Mark and I had invested in together 2 years back. A fixer-upper we planned to flip. We bought it cheap, but the deal stalled. Permits, contractors, supply costs. Mark told me it wasn't worth the hassle and suggested we let it sit. I agreed. Trusted him to handle the paperwork, the taxes, the filings. Said he'd freeze everything until we were ready. He didn't freeze anything. He just used it as cover. Liam pointed to the statement. Deposit started just after the permit was closed. Then it jumped. Steady wire-ins from other accounts. 2 we've already linked to Tessa's spending. I shook my head slowly. So they funneled the money through the house? Not quite, Liam said. They used the house to justify the account's legitimacy. That let them move money without raising flags. It's not just hiding cash, it's building a clean front. And it all came from my name on that property. Mark hadn't just betrayed me in marriage. He'd betrayed me in business. Every dollar I put into that project had quietly been turned into a foundation for their life together. The spa weekends, the cabin rental, the boat, they weren't just funded by my stolen bank account. They were funded by me. And I had proof. Liam flipped another page. Transaction history. A surge of deposits right after the divorce filing. And then one large withdrawal. 10,000 even. Mark signed the digital release. But he didn't use his real name. Brett Harmon. I leaned back in the booth, heart pounding in a quiet, steady rhythm. They thought I'd never look, I said. Liam nodded. They thought you'd fold. But I wasn't folding. Because now I had leverage. That house? It still had my name on it. That account? Traced back to a fraudulent alias. That money? Tied to marital assets they tried to hide. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was financial misconduct and possibly fraud. They weren't just going to lose what they took. They were going to lose what they built on it. Mark thought I was soft. Tessa thought I was predictable. But the thing about people like me, we may trust too long. We may stay too quiet. But once we see the full picture, we don't just get even. We make sure there's nowhere left to hide. The courtroom felt colder than I expected, not just in temperature, but in tone. Like everyone had already picked a side, and I was the villain walking in late to his own trial. Tessa sat 2 rows ahead, in a blazer she used to wear to job interviews. Hair tied back, no emotion on her face. Mark was beside her. Not officially a party in the proceedings, but there in spirit. Arms crossed, smug. Like this was a game they'd already won. Their attorney stood up first, polished, calm. Like he'd practiced this story 100 times. Miss Callahan has endured emotional manipulation, financial control, and an environment where her safety and independence were consistently undermined. He painted me as a tyrant, cold, unfeeling, controlling. She feared for her well-being, he said. She had no choice but to leave. They showed the restraining order, called it evidence of instability. Said my behavior at the motel was confrontational and erratic. Claimed I'd shown up unannounced and threatened her. I wanted to stand up, yell, tell the judge they were lying, that she gutted the house, that he helped her steal, that I was the one picking up pieces while they played house. But I didn't. I just looked at Drew, my attorney. He nodded once, and then he stood. No further speculation, Your Honor. We'll let the facts speak for themselves. He opened his folder and pulled out a stack of exhibits. First came the transaction reports, showing the timing of the account withdrawals, all made before the alleged emotional abuse, before the filing, before the so-called fear. Then came the receipts, a spa resort in Aspen, a luxury cabin in Lake Placid, fine dining, thousands of dollars spent while she was supposedly in hiding from my controlling behavior. Then came Liam's photos, high resolution, date stamped, one of her and Mark unloading boxes into the rental property they bought under that fake business name, another of them holding hands in public, weeks before she claimed to have emotionally separated from the marriage. But the final one? Mark. At the bank, walking out after signing as Brett Harmon. Drew laid it all out like a surgeon in the middle of an operation. Calm, precise, clinical. Tessa Callahan didn't flee an unsafe home. She executed a plan, with assistance, financially, emotionally, and logistically. The judge sat in silence for a moment, flipping through the documentation. Their lawyer scrambled, tried to object, claimed the evidence was circumstantial, but it was too late. Because the narrative they tried to build of the innocent woman and the cruel husband was falling apart under the weight of facts they never thought I'd find. They thought they could rewrite the truth. They didn't expect me to document it. And when the truth shows up in black and white, even lies dressed in suits start to crumble. There's a moment in every performance when the mask slips. It's not big, not loud, just a flicker, an eye twitch, a stutter, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. I'd seen Tessa wear 1,000 expressions in our years together, but the one she wore now, under oath, was new. Panic. It started small. The judge leaned forward and tapped the folder containing the account statements Evelyn had traced. "Mrs. Callahan," he said, measured, deliberate, "can you explain the purpose of this account opened under the alias Brett Harmon, tied to your shared property?" She blinked. Once. Twice. I don't know what that is." Mark, sitting in the back, shifted in his seat, just once. But I caught it. So did the judge. Drew stood up. "Your Honor, may I direct the court's attention to Exhibit 24, Mr. Harmon's digital signature on a wire transfer from this same account. Security footage confirms Mr. Harmon is, in fact, Mark Ellison." The judge raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me this alias was used to funnel marital funds, outside of disclosure, into a private investment?" Tessa's lawyer tried to object. The judge overruled. "Answer the question, Mrs. Callahan." Her lips parted, but no sound came. For the first time, she wasn't the one holding the script. She looked at me, not with anger, not with regret, with fear. Because this wasn't just a financial slip-up. It was fraud, perjury, asset concealment, all of it backed up by a forensic trail they couldn't erase. And it didn't matter how carefully they rehearsed. None of it could stand when the one question was this simple. Why did she lie about the account? And when she couldn't answer that, everything else collapsed. She stammered something about Mark handling the finances, said she trusted him, that she didn't know about the account's origin. But it was already too late. The trust she tried to weaponize had turned against her. Because the court didn't need emotion. It needed motive. And now it had it. They'd stolen the money, moved it under a false identity, then claimed innocence under oath. And all of it traced back to a name she said she'd never heard before. The judge turned back to her, quiet but firm. "I'm placing a temporary freeze on all assets tied to this alias. We will revisit financial penalties and legal ramifications pending further review. You are advised to speak with your counsel, carefully." Tessa lowered her eyes. Her hand shook as she picked up her water glass. No more smug smiles, no more calm posture. The shift had happened. She broke. Not because of me, but because truth is patient. It waits in silence, then lands with the force of everything they thought they'd buried. And in that moment, it wasn't me on trial anymore. It was them. It didn't happen all at once. Justice never does. It's not a firework. It's a slow, grinding wheel that turns quietly until someone gets crushed underneath it. And when it did turn, it landed right on them. The court froze everything. Not just the accounts, everything. The rental property, the brokerage, even the boat. Anything tied to that alias or to assets taken from our marriage was locked tighter than a vault. Tessa tried to object. Her lawyer said it was unfair retaliation. But the judge didn't blink. "You lied under oath," he said. "You forfeited the benefit of the doubt." Drew filed for full recovery of marital assets, plus damages for concealment and fraud. Evelyn backed it up with spreadsheets so detailed the court clerk asked for extra time to process them. And just like that, the accounts Mark thought he'd buried were mine again. The joint account drained into a trust under my name. The rental property declared marital, meaning she couldn't sell it, lease it, or touch it. And the house, the one she cleared out like I was a ghost, it came back to me in full. Every room, every wall. Empty now, sure, but finally clean. Finally mine. But that wasn't the part that shook them. The part that shook them was the IRS. Because while they were playing house and building dreams on stolen funds, they forgot one thing. Paper trails don't disappear. And the moment Evelyn flagged the offshore wiring patterns and shell corporations tied to Mark's cousin, we alerted the tax authorities. Turns out filing taxes gets tricky when you lie about where your money came from and who it belonged to. The investigation is still ongoing, but it's real. And it's serious. Wire fraud, asset concealment, tax evasion. Mark hasn't called me. He doesn't need to. I saw his face when the court read the order. The bravado was gone. The charm, the smirk, the easy confidence he always wore like a suit. It vanished. And what sat there in its place? A man who finally realized he bet everything and lost. Tessa didn't cry, didn't scream. She just went quiet. Because the worst part of being caught in a lie is knowing the people you tried to outsmart now own the truth. I walked out of that courthouse with nothing in my hands, but everything in my corner. Not because I got angry, not because I shouted louder, but because I got smart. They thought they were taking from a man too weak to fight back. But I didn't need revenge. I needed facts. And now, they have to live with the truth they tried to bury. While I walk through a house they thought they'd stolen, in peace, knowing they lost everything they built on a lie. It's strange what sticks with you. Not the yelling, not the heartbreak, not even the silence after they left. What stuck with me most was the way the motel looked at sunrise. Months later, long after the court dates had passed and the paperwork had settled like dust over old memories, I found myself on the same highway, same stretch of road. No reason to take that exit, but I did. Just one last time. The parking lot was empty now. No black pickup, no sedan, no voices behind cheap curtains. Just the flicker of a dying sign and the echo of a man I used to be. I didn't stop, just drove past slow enough to look, fast enough not to be pulled back in. I didn't feel rage, didn't feel bitterness. I felt done. See, revenge burns fast, feeds on pride and pain. But justice? Justice lasts. It doesn't ask for attention, doesn't scream. It just lands, quietly, permanently, like a door closing for good. The house is full again, not with stuff, with peace. I painted the walls, replaced the couch, put up new photos, not of what was, but what's becoming. I even got a new dog, Rescue. Nervous at first, just like me. We trust slowly now. Mark disappeared. I heard he tried to start another business under a different name. It flopped. Too many eyes watching, too many flags on his file. You can't build success on sand and lies. Tessa? I don't know. I don't look. I don't care. Whatever she found with him, it came at the cost of everything she thought she owned. Because what she stole was temporary. What I rebuilt, that's mine. Every inch of it. I wake up early. Not because I have to, but because I want to. I make coffee slow. I read. I take walks. I meet people again. Not guarded, not afraid, but wiser, clearer. They taught me how not to love, how not to trust. But in doing so, they taught me something better. How to win. Not through revenge, through patience, through clarity, through never letting pain write your story. I don't need to tell them what they lost. They feel it every day, in court dates, in closed accounts, in the silence between them when trust isn't real. Me? I've got mine back. Not just the money. Not just the home. Me. So yeah, I never wanted revenge. But I'll be honest. Justice feels good.